Hello, everyone, and welcome to Allison's Storyland. I'm your host, Alice. Um, Today, we'll be reading excerpts from a book called If Life is a Bowl of Cherries, What Am I Doing in the Pits by Erma Bombeck. Is Erma Bombeck cheating a little bit? Yes, it is, but I don't care. So, today's wine we have paired $4.99, big sipper wine. And I was gonna use the glass, but it kind of like has the desperate mother vibes that I'm trying to give off if I just chug it straight from the bottle. So that's what we'll be doing today. I have picked two short little segments, and if they get too long, we'll just stop. But let's get started. If you thought the wedding was bad, next to hot chicken soup, a tattoo of an anchor on your chest, and penicillin, I consider a honeymoon one of the most overrated events in the world. It's one of those awkward times when you know everyone else had a better time than you did, but you're too proud to admit it. A honeymoon hall of fame is being established at the resort hotel in the Poconos. According to Publicity, a heart-shaped alcove will feature photos, mementos, and memorabilia of famed loving couples of history and fiction. To date, they have included a recording of the Duke Windsor's history-making declaration of love, in which he renounced the British throne, early cartoons of Blondie and Dagwood, and film clips of Elizabeth Taylor's weddings. It boggles the mind to imagine how they are going to determine who will enter the Honeymoon Hall of Fame, and for what reasons, but here are a few nominations. Ruth and Walter, who enjoyed the shortest honeymoon in history. Ruth shot Walter in the leg at the reception for fooling around with a maid of honor. Sue and Ted for the most unique honeymoon in history. While Sue swam, danced, played tennis, and shopped, Ted ice fished, skied, played cards, and drank with the boys. While separate honeymoons don't work for everyone, it worked for Sue and Ted. Laura and Stuart, the couple who were the greatest sports on their honeymoon. Right after the wedding, Laura discovered Stuart was on bail for armed robbery, was coming down with 3 days' measles, and was already married, had a son who set fires, and had taken out a $75,000 worth of life insurance on her at the reception. But what the heck? As Laura explained, honeymoons are always a time of adjustment. There are a lot of theories as to why marriages aren't lasting these days. The original premise was so simple. All you had to do was promise to love and to cherish from this day forward for better or for worse. And you asked yourself, how bad could it get? Bad never reaches it to the big stuff. It's always the little things that do a marriage in. For example, a woman can walk through the Louvre Museum in Paris and see 5,000 breathtaking paintings on the wall. A man can walk through the Louvre in Paris and see 5,000 nails in the wall. That is the inherent difference. I don't know what there is about a nail in the wall that makes strong, virile men cry. The first time I was aware of this phenomenon was a week after my husband and I were married. I passed him in the kitchen one day while carrying a small nail and hammer. "Where are you going with that hammer and nail?" he asked, beginning to pale. "I am going to hang up a towel rack," I said. He could not have looked more shocked if I had said I was going to drive a wooden peg into the heart of a vampire. "Do you have to drive that spike into the wall to do it?" "No," I said, resting on the sink. "I could prop the towel rack up in the corner on the floor. I could hang it around my waist from a rope. Or I could do away with it altogether and keep a furry dog around the sink to dry my hands." "What is there about women that they cannot stand to see a smooth, bare wall?" he grumbled. I want to take a brief excerpt here. When we moved into our house, the family that lived here before us used the big ass nails that you use to like hammer the house together with just to hang pictures on. So we don't have any smooth bare walls. They're all pockmarked with these big ass nail holes. But whatever. And what is there about men that they cannot stand to have the necessities of life hung from a wall? "What necessities?" he asked. "Certainly you don't need that mirror in the hallway." "You said that about the light switches." His eyes narrowed, and I had the feeling he was going to zap me with his big point. "Do you realize," he asked slowly, "that there is not one single wall in this house where we can show a home movie?" Wow, that sounds like my husband. It is $4.99 wine. Radio City Music Hall only has one, I retorted. And so the nail versus the bare wall has gone on for years at our house. He wouldn't hang a calendar over my desk because in 12 months the nail would become obsolete. He wouldn't hang the children's baby pictures because in 2 years they'd grow teeth and no one would recognize them. He wouldn't let me put a hook in the bathroom so I wouldn't have to hold my robe while I showered. He wouldn't let me hang a kitchen clock anywhere but a wall stud, which happened to be located behind the refrigerator. Sometimes you have to wait for revenge. Yesterday, he reported he ran over a nail with his car. There's an object lesson here, but I wouldn't insult anyone's intelligence by explaining it. To love and to cherish from this day forward. Why doesn't anyone think to ask? Snoring could be a real threat to marriage, especially if it's a snore that blows lampshades off the base, pictures off the wall, and makes farm animals restless as far as 50 miles away. The loudest snore, according to the Guinness World Book of Records, was measured at 69 decibels at St. Mary's Hospital in London. Until last night. That's when my husband broke the record by sustaining his breathing at a rousing 72 decibels. 72 decibels, for the innocent, is the equivalent of having a cannon go off on the seat next to you at the Astrodome. "Hey, Cyrano!" I yelled. "Wake up! You're doing it again!" "Doing what?" "Snoring." "You woke me up to tell me that? If I've told you once, I've told you 1,000 times. I do not snore. I'd know that if I did." That is the same logic used by the man who said if I had amnesia I would have remembered it. "What did it sound like?" "Like the Goodyear blimp with a slow leak." "Well, what did you expect? A concert?" Maybe I'll try what Lucille Farnsworth did when her husband's snoring drove her crazy. "What's that?" he asked sleepily. She just put a pillow over his face. "Good Lord, woman, that would cause a man to stop breathing altogether." "Well, she hasn't worked out all the bugs yet, but she's on to something." "Why didn't you just roll me over onto my side?" "I did, and you hit me." And so it went, all through the night. Frankly, I'm sick of all the therapist remedies that never seem to work, like self-hypnosis, earplugs, and rolling the snorer off his back. These are the only remedies that bear consideration. Change beds. Get the snorer out of his own bed and into a strange one, preferably in another state. Prolonging sleep. This one works as well as any I've tried. Just as you are both climbing into bed, get every nerve in his body on alert by offhandedly mentioning, "The IRS called you today. They'll call back tomorrow." Some experts believe you have to get to the root of the husband's reason for snoring. It has been suggested that a person snores because he is troubled. His dentures don't fit properly, he indulges in excessive smoking or drinking, and has swollen tonsils, or suffers from old age. Don't believe any of it. A man snores for one reason alone: to annoy his wife. And if that doesn't do it, he'll resort to some other ploy to drive her crazy. The "sorry I'm late" syndrome. There are no records to prove it, mind you, but I have every reason to believe my husband was an 11-month baby, and he's been running 2 months late ever since. Through marriage and bad association, I have become a member of the great body of tardy Americans who grope their way down the theater aisles in the dark, arrive at parties in time to drink their cocktails with their dessert, and celebrate Christmas Day on December 26th. Frankly, I don't know how a nice punctual girl like me got stuck with a man who needs not a watch but a calendar and a keeper. Would it shock anyone to know I have never seen a bride walk down the aisle? I have never seen a choir or a graduate in a processional. I have never seen the victim of a mystery before he was murdered. I have never seen a parking lot jammed with people. I have never seen the first race of a daily double or football team in clean uniforms. The other night I had it out with my husband. Look, I am in the prime time of my life, and I have never heard the first 30 seconds of the minute waltz. Doesn't that tell you something? What are you trying to say? I am trying to say that once before I die, I would like to see a church with empty seats. We've been through all this before, he sighed. Sitting around before an event begins is a complete waste of time when you could be spending it sleeping, reading, and working. Don't forget driving around the block looking for a parking place. I don't understand you at all, I continued. Don't you get curious as to what they put in the first acts? Aren't you just a bit envious of people who don't have to jump onto moving trains? Aren't you tired of sitting down to a 44-minute egg each morning? I set my alarm clock every night. What do you want from me? I have seen you when you set your alarm. When you want to get up at 6:30, you set it for 5:30. Then you reset it for 6, and when it goes off, you hit it again and shout, "Ha ha, I was only kidding. I got another half hour." You reset it for 6:30, at which time you throw your body on it and say, "I don't need you. I don't need anybody," and then you go back to sleep. I just happen to believe that there is no virtue in being early. What time is it? It's 8 o'clock. You're supposed to be at work at 8. Yeah, lucky I've got 20 minutes to spare. Never in my life will I hear the Star-Spangled Banner being played. I've also had to adjust to a man who does not know how to live in a world geared to leisure. It's a common problem. A lot of women are married to workaholics, and the trick is to get them to take 2 weeks off a year and just relax. Sounds simple. I took my husband to the beach for 2 weeks, where he promptly spread out a large beach towel, opened his briefcase, and began to balance the checkbook. I took him to a fancy hotel in a big city, where he spent the entire week tinkering with the TV, trying to get snow out of the picture. Once I even took him to a nightclub, where scantily clad girls danced out of the key, and one came over and propped herself ceremoniously on her knee, or on his knee, and tickled his chin, and he turned to me and said, "We should really have the fire insurance on our house updated." A friend of mine suggested I take him camping. There is nothing like the wilderness to make a man relax and bring him back to nature. What did she know? After 3 days in the wilderness, he had rotated the tires, mended 3 water mattresses, built a bridge, filled 8 snow-controlled barrels with cinders, and devised a sophisticated system to de-sand everyone before they entered the tent. He went to the library to check out on how the river got its name, wrote a letter to the editor of the local paper, read the lantern warranty out loud to all of us, organized the ball team, and waxed the tent. He alphabetized my staple goods, painted the word "gas" on the gas cans, and hung our meat from the trees to make it inaccessible to bears and humans. Raccoons eventually ate it. After that experience I told him, "Face it, Bunky, we are incompatible." "Why do you say that?" he asked. "I'm a fun-loving, irrepressible, impetuous Zelda, and you are a proper restrained, put-your-underwear-on-a-hanger Dr. Zhivago." "I have a good time," he said soberly. "Do you know I'm the only woman in the world to wake up on New Year's Day with nothing to regret from the night before? No gold wedgies scattered on the stairway, no party hats in the back of the commode, no taste in my mouth like wet chenille tongue. Only the memories of Father Time dozing over a warm Gatorade. I've had more stimulating evenings picking out Tupperware." "That's not true," he said. "What did we do last New Year's Eve?" "From 7 to 8:30 I picked bubble gum out of the dog's whiskers. At 10:30 you fell asleep on the chair while I drank unflavored gelatin to strengthen my fingernails. At 10:45 I went to the refrigerator for a drink. The kids had drunk all the mix and the neighbors had cleansed us out of the ice cubes, so I poured 2 glasses of warm Gatorade, returned to the living room, and kicked you in the foot. You jerked awake and said, "Did you know at midnight all horses age 1 year?" At 11:45 your snooze alarm went off. You clicked your fingers while Carmen Lombardo sang "Boo Hoo," flipped the porch light on and off twice, and said, "Happy New Year!" I wish we could be like Dan and Wanda. What's so great about Dan and Wanda? He asked. Wanda tells me she and Dan have meaningful conversations. Big deal. It is a big deal. Have we ever had one? I don't think so, he said. Finally I said, what is a meaningful conversation? You're kidding. You don't actually know? No, what is it? Well, it's a conversation with meaning. Like an oil embargo or Paul Harvey? Exactly. Well, what about them? What about who? The oil embargo and Paul Harvey. Well, it doesn't have to be a conversation about the oil embargo and Paul Harvey, he explained patiently. Well, that wasn't very patient, but it's fine. It could be a discussion on anything in your daily schedule that is pertinent. I shaved my legs yesterday. That's not pertinent to anyone but you. Not really. I used your razor. If you read the paper more, your conversation would be a little more stimulating. Okay, here's something meaningful. I read just yesterday that in Nepal, that's in Italy, police were searching for a woman who cut off a man's nose with a pair of scissors while he was sleeping. What do you think of that? That's not meaningful. A few minutes later, I said, suppose it was the American embassy, and the woman was a spy, and the nose, which held secret documents about an oil embargo between Saudi Arabia and Paul Harvey, belonged to President Carter. Why don't we just go back to meaningless drivel? He asked. Which reminds me, I said, did you read the article in the magazine where it said that married people are unable to respond to their differences, and that is why they become frustrated? It is called the old "I don't care, it's up to you, and I will if you want to" blues. You do that a lot, and I never know how you stand on things. I didn't read the article, he said. Well, as I recall, it suggests that a husband and wife spell out their feelings using a scale of 1 to 10. My husband and I would never do that. Ever. I can't even imagine. Honey, what are your feelings like today? On a scale from 1 to 10. For example, if you say, "Would you like to go to a movie?" instead of shrugging my shoulders and responding, "Makes no difference," I respond by saying, "I'm a 5 on attending a movie. Actually, I'm 8 on seeing the picture, but I'm 3 on spending the money right now." That makes sense. It does make sense. Let's try it. What would you like for dinner? Farrah Fawcett Majors. Not who, clown, what? How will I know until I know what we're having? That's the point. Offer some suggestions. Okay, liver is a big 10 with me. I hate liver. To me, liver is a -2 and you know it. How about meatloaf? Meatloaf with meat is a 6. Without meat, but with a lot of bread, is a 2. However, if you feel 9ish about it, I'll send one of the kids to the Golden Arches, which is emerging as a big 10. Would it hurt you to be a 9 about meatloaf just once? You should talk. In 27 years, you haven't gotten off your 2 once when I've discussed having liver. Lower your voice. We don't have to air our 2s and 3s to the neighbors. How about an omelet? Good. We agree. We're out of eggs, so you'll have to go to the store. The car is a 9. I'm having battery trouble. That averages out to omelets to a 4. That averages out omelets to a 4. Okay, we're down to peanut butter. It's a definite 3, -1 for being cold. However, it's a +2 for nutrients, +4 for not being a leftover, and -3 for being fattening, and that comes out to 5. What do you think? I don't care. I was hoping you'd say that. There's a lot of talk about why marriages are failing, but how come so many succeed? Some women are too old for a paper route, too young for Social Security, too clumsy to steal, and too tired for an affair. Some were just born into this world married and don't even know how to act any different. For the woman who has any doubts about her status, just answer a few simple questions. When your husband's best friend leans closer on the dance floor and whispers in your ear, "What are you doing the rest of my life?" And you whisper back, "Waiting for the washer repairman." You married. When a tall, dark, handsome stranger takes your hand and asks you to dance, and you answer, "I can't. My pantyhose just shifted, and with the slightest movement they'll bind my knees together." You married. When a Robert Redford look-alike invites you to have a cup of coffee after your evening class, and you order a hamburger with onions, you married. When you are invited by the office single dude to join him for a weekend and bring a friend, and you bring your husband, you married. When a party reveler asks, "Have you ever thought of leaving your husband?" and you answer, "Where?" you married. No one talks about fidelity anymore, it's just something you hope is still around, and in significant numbers. And when the Coast Guard band strikes up Semper Fidelis, and your husband says, "They're playing our song, you wanna dance?" you know you're married. That'll be it today. It is 21 minutes long, but I feel like that was a good time. I had a good time. See y'all.